presence of the jury, the defendant and the attorneys of record are present. Mr. Brown, before the state calls its next witness, do we have a matter of housekeeping we need to address?
We do, Judge. So far, the state of Iowa has offered states exhibits 1 through 52 by my list, which have been admitted. We would now offer states exhibits 53 through 94 at this time. Just in summary, those are exhibits that relate to the autopsy of Mollie Tibbetts, including a forensic anthropology examination, as well as some other exhibits that relate to a witness later this morning that is from the FBI. So with that, we would offer states exhibits 53 through 94, which I believe the defense is agreeing to.
Defense's position?
No objection to those exhibits, Your Honor.
At this time, states exhibits 53 through 94 are admitted into evidence. With that, then, the state may call its next witness.
Our next witness is Trent Vileta.
Sir, I'll swear you in. Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead and be seated over there if you would, sir.
Good morning.
Morning.
Agent Vileta, can you please state your name for the record?
My first name is Trent, and my last name is Vileta. It's V as in Victor, I-L-E-T-A.
And how are you employed?
I am currently employed by the Iowa Department of Public Safety's Division of Criminal Investigation.
And how long have you been employed with the DCI?
Since 2006.
And what are your current assignment and duties?
So currently I'm assigned to the DCI's Major Crime Unit. So we are the almost like an equivalent of a violent crimes unit. We do homicide cases, officer-involved shootings, basically violent crimes.
And have you always had the current assignment that you have in DCI, or have you had other duties?
I have. When I first get hired by DCI, you have to go to it was called gaming then, now it's our Special Enforcement Operations Bureau. We have agents assigned to casinos, so I was in a casino for approximately a year. And then before that, I was a police officer for the Cornfield, Iowa Police Department from 2002 to 2006. And before that, I was a police officer for the city of Milwaukee, Wisconsin from 1996 to when I started in Cornfield, so around 2002.
All right. What's your educational background?
Well, I just have an Associate of Arts degree right now. I probably have enough credits for a bachelor, but I have a few more classes to do. In my position, it's not required to have a bachelor's degree, so I just haven't finished.
All right. Where did you grow up, by the way?
I grew up in Belle Plaine, Iowa, which is Benton County, and actually lived in Poweshiek County with my parents for a few years. So I graduated from Belle Plaine, did some time in the Tama County area, and then went to college and kind of moved around a little bit.
Gotcha. And over the course of your career as a agent with the Major Crime Unit and DCI, how many different cases have you worked on that have involved homicides?
I get asked that a lot. It's kind of complicated to answer. I do a lot of the state of Iowa's cold cases. I review those. So not only do I do what we would call fresh homicides cases that just happened right now, I also do very old homicides. So it'd be hard for me to estimate. I probably work on 4 or 5 fresh cases a year, and maybe that equivalent of cold cases a year.
All right. And just by way of description, how is the DCI divided with regard to major crime unit agents?
Are you referring to the zones?
Yes.
Yes. So the DCI has 4 zones. We're divided into locations around the state. So, for instance, Zone 2 would be the western third of the state. Zone 1's the Des Moines area. Zone 3 is like northeastern Iowa. And then Zone 4, which I work in, would be the about 20 southeastern counties in the state.
All right, Agent Vileta, I want to direct your attention back to July 20th of 2018. Do you happen to remember that day?
Yes, I do.
Why is that?
That was the day I was assigned to go to Brooklyn, Iowa. The Powashik County Sheriff's Office had a missing persons case, and they requested our assistance with it.
Who was the missing person?
Mollie Tibbetts.
Were you assigned by your supervisor as the case agent?
Yes, my supervisor was Rick Ron. He takes the calls and then he assigns the cases.
So initially this was a missing person, correct?
Correct.
Did you go to Brooklyn, Iowa?
Yes, I did.
Did you make contact with local law enforcement?
Yes, I did.
Who would that have been?
The Powashik County Sheriff's Office would be the lead agency on this.
All right. And their lead investigator is who?
Deputy Steve Kivy.
All right. Is Steve Kivy someone you had worked with prior to the Mollie Tibbetts disappearance?
Yes.
Somebody you were familiar with?
Yes.
So do you remember about what time you arrived in Powashik County on July 20th of 2018?
Not the exact time. They were organizing searches from the fire department that day. It would have been relatively early in the morning, maybe between 8 and 9 a.m., somewhere around there.
Where did you and other investigators stage up for your work in looking for Mollie Tibbetts?
The Brooklyn Fire Department.
Whenever you arrived in Brooklyn, were you briefed by other officers as to what the status of the investigation was at that time?
Yes.
And initially, what were your duties?
So when you have a missing persons case, you don't always necessarily have a homicide or a death. So with any investigation, our initial duties is to start collecting information. And it's almost always we collect information on the victim right away.
Okay.
Or the missing person.
And how do you go about doing that?
What you do is you start with the people closest to the victim. It's usually a small circle of our closest friends and family. That's where we start. We call it a victimology. The victimology is just kind of as it sounds. It's who is this person we're looking for? Who do they associate with? What's their lifestyle like? And then it's, I guess, the best way to describe basic investigative techniques.
All right. And in making that assessment, where would you have put Mollie Tibbetts as far as risk?
So Mollie Tibbetts was extremely low risk.
Why do you say that?
It's the lifestyle that she lived. A lot of our victims, there's drugs and alcohol. There's abusive relationships. There's all these different factors that would push that person into a higher risk of becoming a victim. Mollie Tibbetts didn't have any of those. Mollie Tibbetts probably had the nicest text messages we've ever read. We had a hard time finding something negative about Mollie Tibbetts.
So do you start looking at people or gaining information from people that are, I'll just characterize it as being in the orbit of Mollie Tibbetts?
Yes.
Okay, and just generally speaking, who would that have been?
Generally, you look at the spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend first, family members, anybody that would be within like you said, within her orbit, but I think a better way to describe it, just within her life, a lot.
All right. I know we have, maybe this isn't working now. Judge, may we approach, please?
You may. Give me just a second. All right, Agent Vileta, we were talking in terms of your basic investigation approach, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, so at the time that you arrived in Brooklyn on July 20th of 2018, did you or anyone else in law enforcement know the whereabouts of Mollie Tibbetts?
No.
And were the steps that you took in your investigation an approach that you hoped to locate her alive?
Yes.
Now, in terms of the breadth of the investigation from July 20th, how many weeks or days did you and other officers make efforts to find Mollie Tibbetts before she was actually located?
Approximately 30 days.
You started July 20th of 2018, correct?
Correct.
And when was the body found in the cornfield believed to be Mollie Tibbetts?
August 21st of 2018.
All right. As part of your duties as the case agent, did you also utilize members of the DCI crime lab?
Yes, we did.
Specifically, did Tara Scott, was she assigned to search areas early on?
Yes, I think she was in Mollie Tibbetts' residence.
Okay. So are you familiar with the address of 622 West Des Moines Street in Brooklyn, Iowa?
Yes, I am.
Have you been in that residence?
Yes.
When did you first go into 622 West Des Moines?
I think it was day one. I think then July 20th, 2018 was the first time we went in there.
Okay, and you utilized, yes.
I'd ask you to speak up a little more. I think some of the jurors in the back, and then also Mr. Vileta, if you could speak up, both of you, just project a little more if you could.
'Cause the sound system is killed at the moment, is that right?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
so just
Great. That's fine. Agent Vileta, you utilized the crime scene team at 622 West Des Moines in Brooklyn, correct?
Yes, we did.
All right. And that would have been Tara Scott?
Yes.
And did she have somebody else with her?
She did, but I don't remember who that would have been.
So whenever a crime scene team arrives on the scene of any area you want searched, do you brief them first?
Yes, we do.
Did you do that in this case?
Yes.
And ultimately, would you characterize 622 West Des Moines Street as a crime scene?
No, there were 3 crime scenes in this case, and 622 West Des Moines was not one of them.
Okay. Still getting static across the speaker.
Why don't we do this? Let's take a 10-minute recess. I know it's early in the day, but we do need to take an attempt at getting the sound system squared away. During the break, we'll see if we can get the ship righted. Just want to remind you of your admonition. Go ahead and take a break, and we'll resume as quickly as we can. Thank you. The jury, the defendant, and the attorneys of record are present. Sir, I want to remind you you're still under oath. Mr. Brown, go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. All right. Welcome to the courthouse that's under construction. Agent Vileta, we'll continue on, or we'll try to. We were talking before the break about 622 West Des Moines. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And just refresh our memory, what did you learn during the investigation as to who was residing there the week that would have included July 18th of 2020?
Yeah, so the house belonged to Blake Jack and his fiancee Allie. I think it's Houghton is how you spell her name. And then Blake's brother Dalton. Jack was living there, and then Mollie Tibbetts would stay with Dalton majority of the time.
Okay. Other than 622 West Des Moines, where else did you learn that Mollie Tibbetts would have resided the summer of 2018?
She would stay at her mom's house too. Her mom lived in Brooklyn, and I don't recall that address.
Okay. Did Mollie Tibbetts have a vehicle?
She, if I remember correctly, I think she was sharing a vehicle with one of her brothers. When we were talking to her family, it was complicated because she had to get the car back in time for her brother to use it, that sort of thing. So it's just a shared vehicle.
Agent Vileta, whenever you began your investigation into the disappearance of Mollie Tibbetts, were you able to develop investigative leads that you were able to assign to other law enforcement agents to follow?
Yes.
Whenever we use the term lead in an investigation, what does that mean to you as a case agent and lead investigator?
Right. So when we develop leads, what we often have to do is we basically call follow the trail, right? So we have to follow the lead, whichever direction it takes us. Some leads will dry up pretty quickly. Some we literally run into the ground. So a lead is just whether it's a suspect or potential incident site, we follow the lead and try to develop evidence or information from that lead.
All right. And did you do that in this case?
Yes.
So if you can, for the jury, can you just summarize the resources that you had at your disposal, particularly initially whenever you were called in to investigate Mollie Tibbetts' disappearance?
So initially we were kind of thin. I think it was about the 23rd or so of July the FBI shows up. So our investigative team would have been the Poweshiek County Sheriff's Office, the Iowa Department of Public Safety, and we often refer to the DCI, but the DPS has 4 divisions. So we have the patrol, DCI, our narcotics officers, and our fire marshal's service. So at some point we utilized all of them, and then of course the FBI, which really they have almost unlimited resources.
And whenever you say you utilized all of them, it wasn't every agent in the state, correct?
No, we did not, but we utilized just for manpower and that sort of thing. We used all our divisions.
And in addition to law enforcement, were there other civilians that were engaged in searching the area in an attempt to find Mollie Tibbetts?
Yes. I mean, it was a community effort. Day one, The sheriff's office had organized a probably 200-plus person search of the area at the fire department. We had airplanes flying over. We would get calls from hospital helicopters saying, hey, we have some extra fuel. Do you want us to fly over a certain area?
Is that type of assistance welcome to you and other law enforcement?
Of course. I mean, the ultimate objective on this whole thing was to locate Mollie Tibbetts. So if we could find her, we didn't necessarily care who found her.
All right. During the course of your investigation, did you or other officers have contact with Dalton Jack?
Yes.
And what had you learned concerning Dalton Jack's relationship to Mollie Tibbetts?
Dalton Jack was Mollie Tibbetts' boyfriend, and they were more or less living together.
At 622 West Des Moines?
Yes.
Was Dalton Jack interviewed on multiple occasions?
Yes, he was.
Was there a particular agent that was assigned to him to follow any lead that related to Dalton Jack?
I think Matt George with the DCI did most of Dalton Jack's interviewing.
All right, and Matt George was a major crime unit agent that worked with you?
Yes, he was.
During the course of your investigation into Dalton Jack, did you or other officers learn where he was working?
Yeah, he was working for Jasper Construction, and they were actually building a bridge or taking apart a bridge or something in Dubuque, Iowa during that week.
What was your understanding concerning his whereabouts the week that would have included July 18th of 2018?
He was in Dubuque, Iowa until Thursday evening, which would have been the 19th. I think he came back to Brooklyn, Iowa.
All right. And did you take steps to learn Dalton Jack's whereabouts?
Yes, we did.
All right. Hang on a second. Did you or other agents speak with Dalton Jack's supervisor?
Yes, we did.
Did you also speak with others that may have had contact with him in Dubuque on July 18th of 2018?
Yes, we did.
And based upon that information, was Dalton Jack eliminated as a suspect in the disappearance of Mollie Tibbetts?
Yes, that in addition to some other information too.
Okay. Agent Vileta, did you have any person or witness come forward to you or to any other DCI agent indicating that Dalton Jack had been seen in Brooklyn, Iowa, or near Brooklyn, Iowa, on or about July 18th of 2018?
No, no one said Dalton Jack was in Brooklyn on the 18th of July.
In an effort to corroborate that, you or other agents spoke to other witnesses?
Yes.
People that worked with him?
Yes.
Did you also examine Dalton Jack's phone?
Yes.
Was there anything inconsistent that you found or other agents found that would have been inconsistent with his whereabouts being in Dubuque, Iowa, or near Dubuque, Iowa on July 18th of 2018?
No, we could not find anything that would place him in Brooklyn, Iowa that day.
And you looked, correct?
Well, yes, and the FBI did, and the FBI is very, very good at collecting data. So I don't know anybody better at doing it.
All right. Anything that the FBI brought to you that would have been inconsistent with his whereabouts being in Dubuque, Iowa?
No.
On July 18th of 2018?
No.
All right. In terms of electronic investigation, did you utilize anyone to examine the phone data of Mollie Tibbetts?
Are you referring to doing a Celebrite or just actually looking at the Celebrite data?
What I'm referring to is, did you utilize anybody from the FBI,
Yes, we
the
did.
Federal Bureau of Investigation, to assist you in analyzing the phone data of Mollie Tibbetts?
Yes, we did.
And just in general, what was the purpose of that request?
Well, so phone data, it's an excellent way to, I think Kevin Horan from the FBI, special agent there, was the first one that came, and he was able to utilize her phone data to basically show her location, where her phone's location is, I guess is a better answer. But yes, we're able to use phones to show locations of people.
Okay, and based upon that information from Agent Horan from the FBI, did you and other agents search an area near Brooklyn, Iowa for any clue concerning Mollie Tibbetts' disappearance?
Yes, we did.
And where would that area have been?
Well, we searched from 385th all the way to the southeastern quadrant of the county.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and put an exhibit on the screen. Hang on just a second. Can we get the screen up, Jeff? All right. Agent Vileta, on the screen is Exhibit 6. Do you see that?
Yes.
And this has been described as 385th Avenue leading east out of Brooklyn. Would you agree with me?
Yes.
Is this the area generally that you begin searching based upon the information Agent Horan had provided you from the FBI?
Yes, it is.
All right. You also indicated there was an area south of this location. Would you agree?
Yes.
All right. And how far south did you go, just in general terms, with regard to what area you would have searched for the location of Mollie Tibbetts?
It was a couple miles south of Guernsey, which I want to say, I want to be good at mileage, maybe 8 or 10 miles south of 385th.
And again, this was based upon information that Agent Horan had provided you?
Correct.
In your search of this area, by the way, when did it happen? What date was that you would have been looking?
That we started looking on 385th?
Yes.
Well, we had the initial information from Christina Stewart that she saw her out there. I know lots of people were driving that road 385th, but not until Kevin Horan got there did we have more specific locations to look at. So that would have been, like I said, the Tuesday or Wednesday that he arrived after the FBI got there.
All right. Give the jury, if you would, a description of the kind of the lay of the land, the crops that were in the field, what you were up against as far as investigators in searching for any clue as to the disappearance of Mollie Tibbetts.
Right. So it's, we're in late July. If anybody grew up in a rural area in Iowa, there's no more rural areas than Poweshiek County. So it's very agricultural there. Pretty much every field is either beans or corn. Corn at that time was, I would guess, pretty much fully grown. The beans were fully grown, and then the ditches were all overgrown. So, you have an almost 2/3 of the summer where grass is growing within the fields. Most of the roads, 385 South is all either gravel or dirt.
And while you were conducting your investigation and this search over several days, was weather also a factor?
Yeah, and the summer weather is always a factor. Just, for example, running a dog through the area, the dogs will overheat quickly. In the summers in Iowa, sometimes we have a drought, sometimes it rains every day. So weather is always a concern of ours.
Well, specifically though, with regard to the time that Mollie Tibbetts went missing, was Iowa in a rainy pattern at that time?
It was. I think the 19th of July, the day after she went missing, I think there was a tornado that hit Marshalltown, and there was a couple inches of rain that day.
And can that type of weather hinder an investigation?
Yes.
Initially, in the course of your investigation, really through July and into the first part of August, did you ever run across the name of Cristhian Bahena Rivera?
No.
Did you ever have any information up until August or mid-August, around the 14th, that there was a black Malibu that was associated potentially with the disappearance of Mollie Tibbetts?
No.
All right. You can go back to black screen on that. I'm going to put Exhibit 10 up on the screen. My son makes an appearance. Okay. That's okay. We'll get there. All right, this is Exhibit 10. That's on the screen. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Does this, what is this? Is this a particular area of Poweshiek County?
Yes, this would be the, it's labeled, it's our search locations near Guernsey, Iowa.
Okay. And this is not all of the search locations in the southeast part of Poweshiek County. Would that be true?
No, it's not all, no.
Yeah, this is just a representation of those search areas?
Correct.
All right, there are red flags or half circles that are on the map. What do those represent?
Those would represent areas or houses that we would have made contact.
Okay. So were you going farmhouse to farmhouse trying to get any information concerning the whereabouts of Mollie Tibbetts?
Yes, we were.
All right, and this was a map that you would utilize so you didn't duplicate efforts?
Yes.
All right. Agent Vileta, ultimately you were at the location where Mollie Tibbetts was recovered. Is that true?
That's true.
How close did your systematic search of the area that you were given by Agent Horan get to where her body was ultimately located?
I think relatively close, maybe between a quarter to a half mile away.
Okay, you can take that down. Agent Vileta, let's shift gears just a bit. Were there potentially other persons of interest or potential suspects that DCI developed or talked to over the course of the investigation?
Yes.
It's been brought up in this case, the name of Wayne Cheney. Are you familiar with him?
Yes, I am.
And did he live in the area near where Mollie Tibbetts was located?
Yes,
Or was he interviewed?
multiple times, yes.
So law enforcement paid attention to him?
A lot of attention, yes, we did.
Ultimately, was he eliminated as a suspect?
Yes, he was.
And that was based upon investigation
Yes,
and speaking with him, is that right?
that's right.
And were there others?
There were several others that we looked at, which I would say a deep dive was taken into.
Was there a person that was talked to that had been near the cemetery near 385th in Brooklyn?
Yes.
Who was that?
I think his last name was Jackson Eichhorn.
Okay. And was Jackson Eichhorn interviewed?
Yes, he was.
Did you make attempts to place him at any certain locations related to Mollie Tibbetts?
Again, we took a deep dive into Jackson Eichhorn like everybody else and could not find anything that would implicate him in Mollie Tibbetts' disappearance.
Of all the people that you talked to in the investigation up until the time that the black Malibu was identified, were you able to develop any other leads that were substantial that would have led you to information as to what happened to Mollie Tibbetts?
No, we didn't.
Agent Vileta, describe for the jury, if you would, what steps were taken in an effort to collect surveillance video in Brooklyn, Iowa, on or about the date that Mollie Tibbetts would have disappeared.
So what we do when we have a case like this, we do what we call canvassing. So we go to each house, kind of start possible, maybe a run route for Mollie and go to those houses, and then we expand out. In the course of our canvas, one of the things we always look for is locations for cameras on the house, on the garages, on the businesses. The world is heavily video recorded now, so we usually have luck in finding quite a bit of camera footage.
And was one of those homes at 616 East Des Moines in Brooklyn?
Yes, it was.
Who lived there?
Logan Collins.
And what had officers noticed about cameras at Logan Collins's residence?
Yes, they noticed he had cameras, and I think he had 4 cameras that they could observe.
And were agents tasked with making contact with Logan Collins?
Yes.
Ultimately, what happened with regard to the footage that his cameras would have captured that would have included July 18th of 2018?
Well, the footage on Logan Collins' cameras broke open the case for us. It was the lead that we needed. It provided not only the black Malibu, but it also had a very brief glimpse of Mollie Tibbetts jogging.
Now, you would agree with me that looking at that footage, which the jury has already seen, the runner is more or less a shadow that comes across the screen. Is that right?
Right. I still have a hard time seeing it even when I know I'm looking for it. So yes, we were very fortunate that it was seen the way it was.
Yeah, and we don't have to show it again, but when we enhance it, it does appear that there's a runner.
Yes.
Okay. And what did you know about Mollie Tibbetts' running habits that would have further drawn your attention to this particular date and time?
Well, we had Fitbit data that showed previous run routes, and we knew through the Fitbit data that that would be a route that she would often take. So based on our knowledge of knowing what time of day she normally runs, and then what time we know she was probably abducted, we were able to guess, I guess, a route, possible route through those cameras.
And who are the agents that were assigned to review that surveillance data?
So Derek Reason was the one that, in particular, and then Matt George was the one that actually saw Mollie Tibbetts on the video.
Were you present at the fire station whenever that was discovered?
Yes, I was.
Was it brought to your attention immediately?
Yes, it was.
Based upon your review of the video and other agents' review of the video, was there a particular vehicle that you then began to search for?
Yes, it was a black Malibu, and it had aftermarket chrome mirrors on it.
It also had chrome handles?
Yes.
And did it have some sort of sporty spoked wheel as well?
It did, yes.
Okay. And looking at the video, you can't see a license plate, is that
No,
right?
No, we can't.
But you had a fairly good description of the vehicle, would you agree?
We did, yes.
After this video, did you provide that type of information to other investigators in the case?
Yeah, so what we did then is we basically took a still shot from the camera and printed out that picture, and then we assigned several cars to drive around the area to see if they could not locate the vehicle.
Ultimately, was a vehicle fitting that description located by an officer?
Yeah, Steve Kivy found the vehicle.
Okay. And do you remember what date that was?
Was it I think it was the next day. I'm not exactly sure what day.
I think we have previous testimony that was August 16th. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, yes.
All right. Were you approaching a weekend on August 16th?
We were. I think that was a Thursday, and then Friday was everything kind of getting shut down.
All right, so you had this particular lead based upon what Steve Kivy told you. Were there several days that passed before you made contact with the defendant, Cristhian Bahena Rivera, and the black Malibu?
Yes, there was.
Why was there a delay in that time frame?
Well, at that part of the investigation, a lot of our resources were depleted. I think that was the time when Wisconsin had a missing girl going on, so we lost a lot of our FBI resources. And we didn't have any Spanish speakers. So Deputy Kivy's contact with Cristhian Rivera made it clear to us that we needed a Spanish speaker to talk to him. So it was a nervous time for us because we would have rather done it right away, but we had to basically marshal our resources before we could move forward.
Okay, so you have to plan.
Yes.
Right, and that helps to do things efficiently. Would you agree?
Well, we want to do things correctly and efficiently, yes.
Were you able then to marshal resources on and make a plan for August 20th to make contact with the defendant, Cristhian Bahena Rivera?
Yes, we were.
And what was the plan on August 20th? Summarize that for us, please.
Well, we knew we wanted to interview Cristhian Rivera based on the video. We also, we knew where he worked. We knew he worked at Yerby Farms. We needed to make sure we had good Spanish speakers out there, and we also wanted to talk to people that he worked with. When I mentioned earlier that we had canvassed most of Powashik County, that was one of the areas we hadn't got to yet. So we were essentially wanting to canvass that area too for information.
Right. Yerby Farms was in operation the entire time that the investigation was ongoing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Until you identified Cristhian Bahena Rivera, had you made any effort to canvass Yerby Farms or its workers?
We hadn't been out there. I think we had maybe stopped there just looking for cameras, but we had not done an official canvass yet.
And you had learned that the defendant worked at Yerby Farms,
That's correct.
and that's why you went there.
That's correct.
So describe for the jury what happened on Monday, August 20th, when you went to Yerby Farms.
So what we did is it was just kind of like every other time we would go out and canvass. We got a group of investigators together. We made contact at the farm, and then we tried to split people up so we could talk to them individually.
And just in general, why would you have talked to all the workers at Yerby Farms?
It's kind of a complicated answer. If everybody remembers back in 2018, the political environment was pretty hostile towards our immigrant communities. And we were concerned that any contact that our immigrants would have with the police or anybody from the government would cause them fear or maybe cause them to flee or not cooperate. So we were trying to take every effort possible to make them feel comfortable with us, but we also wanted to be sure we could identify them.
All right, and your efforts were to gain information, correct?
That was our number one priority.
And it was a lead concerning the video and contact with the defendant that led you to Yerby Farms where he worked?
Correct.
Okay. Ultimately, was the defendant requested to come to the sheriff's office for an interview?
Yes, he was.
And did you contact an officer from Iowa City to do that interview?
Yes, Pamela Romero from the Iowa City Police Department came to interview Cristhian Rivera.
Was Officer Romero somebody that you were familiar with from previous investigations?
Yeah, she had come down one other day to help us on this case previously.
To help with interpretation?
Yes.
To help make contact with any Spanish-speaking witnesses?
Yeah. Yes.
Was she helpful?
Very helpful.
The interview then took place at the sheriff's office.
Yes, it did.
We've already been over that, so I'm not going to ask you to recount it, but were you present for much of that interview? Were you present in the building?
Yes, I was.
After the interview at the sheriff's office was concluded, Agent Vileta, did you go to a certain location in Poweshiek County on the early morning hours of August 21st, 2018?
Yes, we did.
And do you remember the address of that location?
It's 2478 460th Avenue.
And at that location or near that address, what was found?
The body of Mollie Tibbetts.
Whenever you were present on the field side, or at the field, I should say, the cornfield, was the defendant also present?
Yes, he was.
Was he located in a vehicle?
Yes.
And was he with other officers in that vehicle?
Yes, he was.
Was one of them Pamela Romero?
Yes.
Was one of them Jeff Fink?
I don't know if Jeff Fink was in. I think Jeff Fink was in that vehicle, yes.
Jeff Fink is an Iowa City police officer,
Yes, he was.
also a Spanish speaker.
Yes.
I think we saw video last week of Jeff Fink on the video, but also present in the car was local sheriff's deputy. Is that right?
I think Steve Kivy was there, and Nick Potritz from the FBI was also there.
During the course of the investigation, Agent Vileta, were officers able to locate the Fitbit or the phone known to be worn by Mollie Tibbetts?
No, we never found those.
Did you search for them?
Yes,
Did you search the area around where her body was located?
yes,
No success.
no,
Did you search other areas in an attempt to find the Fitbit or the phone?
yes.
Describe generally what other areas you would have searched to try to find those two items.
Well, again, you would start where her body was located and then move all around that area. We'd spent quite a bit of time along 385th. The FBI has a device dog that we were able to use that actually sniffs out electronic devices. And then the ditch on, I think it's 200th Street that goes south towards 460th Avenue.
And utilizing those resources, were you able to locate either of those two electronic items?
No, we never found those.
Was information that was located in other places relating to the phone and the Fitbit, was that provided to FBI agent Kevin Horan in an effort to pinpoint their location?
Yes, it was.
Whenever you arrived at the location where Mollie Tibbetts was located, did you go out to where, specifically where her body was located?
Yes.
Describe for the jury what you saw whenever you arrived.
All I could see was her fluorescent running shoes because the rest of her body was concealed under corn leaves, corn stalks, that sort of thing.
Would this, your observations have been before Amy Johnson or John Berry would have arrived from the crime scene team?
Yes.
Whenever you drove out to this location, generally what was the weather?
I think it was misting. Maybe it rained the night before. The roads were very wet, muddy, that sort of thing.
Do you remember about what time you arrived at the cornfield?
I think we left the sheriff's office maybe 4:15, and it took us about maybe a half hour or so to get there.
At the time that you arrived, was it still dark?
It was dark, yes.
Just starting to get light.
Just starting to get light, yes.
Lastly, Agent Vileta, were you or other agents able to locate any weapon that was used to inflict the injuries on Mollie Tibbetts?
No, we weren't.
All right. Did you learn that there were sharp force injuries that caused her death?
Yes.
So what type of weapon would you have been looking for?
Sharp, like a knife, so something with that would create sharp force, so like a bladed weapon.
To your knowledge, was any firearm ever associated with the death of Mollie Tibbetts?
No.
And to your knowledge, despite your efforts and other officers' efforts, were you able to locate a knife or a weapon that would cause sharp force injuries that was associated with the injuries of Mollie Tibbetts?
No, we never found the knife.
Did you look?
All over the place.
Okay. The residence of the defendant was searched.
Yes, it was.
It was a trailer.
Yes,
A couple of knives were taken from that location. Is that right?
that's right.
Were those submitted to the lab for testing?
Yes, they were.
They were not associated with the death of Mollie Tibbetts?
No.
Just describe, I know you said all over the places where you looked. What other types of places would you have searched in an effort to try to find the item, like a knife, that would have caused the death of Mollie Tibbetts?
Well, Cristhian Rivera also had 2 vehicles, so we would have looked there, and then at or near her, Mollie Tibbetts' body.
Agent Vileta, you were made aware of the video from Logan Collins' house that developed leads in this case. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you stay in touch with Officer Pamela Romero concerning admissions or statements that the defendant was making concerning the death of Mollie Tibbetts?
Yes.
And did you also stay in touch with, and were you aware of physical evidence, specifically blood, that was found on or in the trunk of the Chevy Malibu that was driven by the defendant, Cristhian Bahena Rivera?
Yes.
Prior to going to the location of Mollie Tibbetts' body at the address that you just mentioned, did any law enforcement agent know the location of Mollie Tibbetts' body that was related to you?
No.
So prior to August 21st of 2018, neither you nor anyone in law enforcement, to your knowledge, had any knowledge as to the location of Mollie Tibbetts
No, we did not know where she was. No.
until August 21st of 2018.
That's correct.
That's all the questions I have this time.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Defense may cross-examine.
Good morning.
Morning.
Let's just start, if you would, kind of set the stage for us. It's Brooklyn, Iowa, between July 23, when you get there, and August 20th. Let's use that date. It was kind of a media frenzy, wasn't it?
People don't believe us when we didn't pay a lot of attention to the media, but it was, I guess. There was a lot of media attention.
Okay. National media was there, correct?
Yeah. I think I met several, just bumped into them at Casey's, that kind of thing.
A lot of local media there,
Yes.
and there was a reward put out for the solving of Miss Tibbetts' disappearance, wasn't there?
Yes.
And it was exponential, like $400,000, if memory serves me, right?
I think that sounds correct, yes.
Is that the largest reward that you've ever been involved with in an investigation?
Yes, by far, yes.
So this was a case with a lot of attention, would you agree with me?
Yes,
The whole town was circling the wagons trying to find Mollie, right?
yes,
People coming from all over trying to help out.
yes.
This case was in the spotlight, right?
Yep. Yes, sorry.
Okay, so Mr. Brown just asked you about the attempts to find the murder weapon. You recall that question?
Yes.
Did you ever go back to 622 West Des Moines Street and look for a weapon there?
We would have had no reason to.
Okay. Now, was it your decision to have Sheriff Tom Kriegel go on television on July 25 and publicly clear Dalton Jack?
The media decisions were not part of my decision-making.
But you're aware that Sheriff Kriegel publicly declared Dalton Jack on July 25.
I am aware of that, yes.
Who made that decision?
I would always be aware when a press conference or something would take place. I guess I can't honestly remember who made that decision.
Okay, well, you're the case agent and you're in charge at that point, right?
Right.
And a decision like that would have to go through you, would it not?
Media decisions were way out of my decision-making process. I think because of the media attention, we gave a lot more press conferences than we were used to. But they may have asked me if it was okay to do it, but I don't remember that day. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, who else would have the authority to make that decision besides you?
Well, there was a lot of supervisors there. So you not only had the sheriff of Powashik County, you had several DCI supervisors. They were bouncing in and out. My supervisor, Rick Ron, was there daily, providing resources, that sort of thing. the FBI had supervisors almost there. So generally, in most of our cases, press conferences are distractions for the investigators. So normally that kind of stuff is being made by supervisors, but like I said, I would be surprised if the lead investigative team wouldn't have said, go, that's okay if you want to do something.
Okay. Now, you understand the very next day on July 26th, you had Matt George approach Dalton Jack again and ask for another interview, right?
Yes, I remember that, yes.
And then Dalton Jack gave another interview on the 27th. You're aware of that?
Right.
And in that interview, it was learned that he wasn't completely forthright in the previous interviews, right?
Yes.
I don't object to the characterization that he's not forthright. I think that's speculation on behalf of this witness.
Objections overruled.
Go ahead and answer.
Yes.
And that was information concerning an affair he had had on Mollie Tibbetts.
Yes, that's true.
And you reviewed the reports of Agent George from that interview, right?
Yes.
And to your recollection, if you can tell us, why was Dalton Jack not coming forth with that information initially?
I'm going to object as to any reasons that Dalton Jack may have had. This is speculation.
Sustained.
Did Dalton Jack give any reasons?
I don't recall exactly why. I could only speculate as to why he did that.
Do you recall reviewing Agent George's report and Dalton Jack saying that he didn't think it was relevant?
If it's in Matt George's report, it would be correct.
Okay. Now, Mr. Brown, well, let's back up. You talked about Mollie Tibbetts' text messages. So you went through her text messages, right?
The investigative team did, yes.
Okay, and what about them led you to believe she was extremely low risk?
She just, she didn't use profanity or anything on there. There was no, it's very benign sort of text messages. She always appeared to be trying to help her friends out. There was just no, often we will find on text messages from our victims just talks of drug use or things like that. We just didn't really find anything from Mollie that raised red flags.
She seemed very kind, right?
Yes, she did.
And very loving to everyone around her, right?
Yes, she did.
And that coincided with the interviews that agents were doing, trying to learn about Mollie, right?
Right.
Even to people she didn't know, she was very kind.
Yes.
In the materials I've been given, I don't think I've found anyone who spoke an ill word of Mollie Tibbetts.
Right. It's very uncommon for that, but you're right. We didn't either.
I mean, she seemed to be a genuinely nice person.
Yes.
And if she didn't know you but thought you needed a hand, she would offer that hand, right?
I would believe that to be true, yes.
I mean, she is truly an innocent victim, right?
Right.
We can agree on that.
Yes.
And she had friends that cut across all socioeconomic spectrums. She liked the poor kids and she liked the rich kids, right?
She did. Yes, she did.
She liked the boys and she liked the girls, right?
Right.
She liked the white kids and the non-white kids, right?
Right.
I mean, she just truly gave everybody a fair shot, right?
Yes, that's a good description of Mollie.
Yeah, I mean, so again, she's truly an innocent victim here.
Right.
Now, in those messages, in the context of what you called victimology, tell the jury again what victimology is.
It's one of those terms that's complicated to explain to people outside of law enforcement. The best way I can explain it, it's more of a background check. It's collecting just as much data about a person as we can. So.
Agent George, in one of his interviews with Mr. Jack, talks about working the case from the inside out. Is that kind of what it means?
Yeah, I guess Sort of. I know, I get where you're coming from. It's, yes, you want to start with the people closest to the victim and then expand the circle as need be.
And that's what,
Mr. Freeze, let me stop you there. We need to take a recess. Members of the jury, we'll take a 10-minute recess. The hall has been cleared, so you're free to go. I want to remind you of your admonition, and please leave your notebooks where they are. Sir, you can go ahead and step down.